Hello and welcome to this recording from Fife Bereavement Network Group, and today as part of the Dying Matters Week we are looking at sudden death and what impact that has uniquely within death and bereavement. So I've got two people with me this morning and I'd just like you to introduce yourselves, tell us what organisation you're representing, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions. So Jen, if you'd like to go first.
Okay, my name's Jen Somerville. I'm from Cruse Bereavement UK, and we work with children and families who have experienced the loss of a significant person by any kind of situation.
And Rhona?
Hi, my name's Rhona Bain. I volunteer for the charity Way Widowed and Young, which offers peer-to-peer support for anyone bereaved of a husband, wife or partner under the age of 51. And I became a member of Way when my husband died suddenly at the age of 48 when he was seemingly fit and healthy.
And Rhona, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that it's a personal story to you. And would you just like to tell us a little bit more about what made his death at that age perhaps unique to other deaths in the bereavement experience?
It was the shock, the suddenness, the fact that if he had been ill, we would have had time to talk about what was going to happen when he died, talking about funerals and finances and the children. But it was just like one day your life's going along as normal and the next day it's turned upside down.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. And Jen, you've obviously worked with children who've experienced a death of a parent or sibling in a very sudden experience. Could you tell us a little bit about what you hear from the children in that situation?
Yeah, actually it was interesting when Rhona was talking there, because I was thinking about my background. So I worked in a decade in palliative care before I came to Cruse Bereavement UK, and I think it's that bit about it's not about making an assumption about a better or a worse situation, but I think when you have been in a palliative care situation, you do have a lot of time often to kind of prepare things and talk about things and organise things and make your wishes known. And I think that's the bit about sudden death is, you know, that we hear from families is we didn't have time to organise this, we don't know what somebody's wishes were, we didn't have the chance to have all those conversations about what somebody would want in terms of care or in terms of funerals, or what we would do going forwards with our family and our children and all those kind of things. So I think it is that bit about just that total lack of being able to kind of be prepared but also know what somebody's wishes were if you haven't talked about them. So I think it's really important, whether we're well or we're sick or we think we're going to die in a day or 100 years from now, that we have those conversations so that when the worst happens, we're prepared for what that looks like and how we move forward as a family to respect and kind of fulfill that person's wishes when they're no longer there.
Thank you, Jen. Very, very useful. And Rhona, could you tell us a little bit about what was helpful for people to do, or what was helpful in their interactions with you in that period after that sudden death?
I think the most helpful was finding other people who had also gone through a sudden death, seeing that they had survived and seeing that they eventually things got better for them. Also just the practical advice of what to do when you've got young children and you're trying to work, all those things. So having the support of other people around me, which I got through the Way charity, was very good. The other thing was talking about the fact that we didn't get to say goodbye. So I think it's finding a way of saying goodbye, of saying what you would say. And for me, that was writing a letter, just to say the things that I would have said to him if I'd known that he was going to die that day. And that really helped me to feel that it was, that I had said goodbye.
Yeah, and I think just looking at the whole situation that we're in at the moment with COVID-19, that ways of saying goodbye and being creative around that has become hugely important and hugely challenging within bereavement. And we're certainly seeing very difficult, end of life situations, even in a planned setting, and the sudden death setting really puts that in context. That we can still say a goodbye. It might look different, but we can still creatively and actively do that. Jen, would you like to share a little bit about what you felt has been helpful for children, perhaps around creative stuff?
So, well, I was thinking about that. What the children say is helpful. I suppose it is that bit about, I think, honesty, first off. I think we try and make things better often for children. And when we do that, we often don't give them all the information about what has happened to somebody. And that can be quite difficult. Children often make up the rest. And the bit that they make up is often much worse than if they'd heard the whole story. But I think as well, yeah, that bit, and I think the COVID stuff is making it really difficult at the moment, is how do children get the opportunity to say goodbye? So obviously families in their entireties aren't able to visit. A lot of hospices have said that, you know, adults can visit but children aren't able to at the moment. And I don't think we know yet what the kind of good things and bad things are going to be, but I think it's about being as creative as your imagination allows you to be, isn't it? And I think, you know, often I've worked with children who are just really angry because they haven't had that opportunity to say goodbye, either because they haven't, you know, it was so sudden that they didn't know it was going to happen, or they've been excluded from all the kind of death rituals around after that person's gone. And I think it is that if we're not going to be at a funeral, if we're not going to be there when somebody dies, how do we allow a child to be able to do the stuff that's really important? So often it is writing a letter. I think I've done lots of, it's not very ecologically friendly, but I've done lots of writing letters and attaching them to balloons and lanterns or burning them, or whatever it is that kind of allows us to say what we need to say, and then to be able to feel like we've been able to kind of send that message off, or let that message go into wherever it needs to go. So, yeah, I think it's about our own creativity in how we allow young people to be able to do these things. That's really important.
Yeah, really interesting. And I'm struck actually that often for children, even if it's a death that there maybe the rest of the family know might be coming down the line, they might not have revealed some of that information to the children. So a child can experience a sudden death that is actually an anticipated death for the adults. And I think that can bring some real complexities for children, where everybody knew about it, but they didn't. And for them, it's a sudden death, and that can be really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I think you do raise a good point that actually children probably experience sudden deaths much more frequently than we do as adults, because often we know this is coming, but we haven't explained that to a young person, and then they're suddenly faced with, this person died and I had no idea that it was going to happen. Yeah. And not only that, when I look back in hindsight, I can see that it was coming, but I didn't put it together until after the fact. And then there's a level of, I feel a bit stupid about that, because how did I not see it? But then you only can see it. So, for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you, ladies, for your conversation, and I think that will be helpful to put that in the picture of what we're exploring and looking at this week together. So, thank you very much for your time, and
thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.